Calling to order the Economic Development Commission meeting for October 24th, 2022. Phyllis, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Moons.
Here.
Commissioner Jacobs. We have you muted. I see you.
I have me muted. Sorry. Here.
Commissioner Zelinski and Commissioner Chairman Patterson.
Here.
I'll let the minutes also reflect the council liaison, Greg Carl or Mayor Pro Tem. Greg Carl, Chairman Pro Tem is online, and Senior Planner Doty, and myself, Carlos Trejo, are in the thing.
Okay. Carlos, do we have any public comments? A couple of people online.
We do have one attendee, and that being Councilman Waldman. If there's any questions you have for the public comments, if not, we'll go ahead and proceed. I see none.
We shall proceed. Business communications. Business communication plan, other outreach efforts.
Chairman, we did have the finance director scheduled to do a presentation before the commission tonight. However, he was unavailable. He got caught up on jury duty, so he's out in there. So I will reschedule him to our November 28th meeting. Okay.
Hopefully it's an easy case. Okay. Individual business outreach. If we had any opportunities to do any business outreach, I know I have not. Any other members? See negative head shakes.
I have not.
So that's fine. Okay, we'll move right along. 5-year economic development plan. Where was Ms. Doty going to give her under this?
Yes.
Okay.
My notes are in the car though.
Dawn, you're muted.
I can proceed, I think without the notes. But I will go ahead and, did Becky, did you have anything to comment on the business outreach?
I did not reach out to anyone.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we got to you before we moved on.
No worries.
Plus, people are prone to falling asleep during this presentation, so.
Hey, I resemble that remark.
No one fell asleep at city council. Come on.
Certainly not you, no.
Okay, yeah.
Share your screen.
All right, I am on my way to it. Look at that lovely graphic.
It's stunning.
So, what we have here for the 2020 demographics is a breakdown of some of the highlights. There are some deeper dives and there is a lot more information to cover. Besides collecting the information, and there's also time to digest and analyze and get it on a page. There are some maps that we have planned, but this is a rundown of the numbers. So with population, we looked at what our change was. Is that just for my own? So we grew in population.
I noticed that. That's awesome.
Isn't that great? Roughly 10.
Yeah, it is. It is awesome.
So we have a higher population density, which was one of our goals on our 2006 comprehensive plan. So check a nice incline over the 30 years. But looking at the age breakdown, something that we noticed right away was that there was a decline in the median age. we can, even though we have a decline in the age of children under the age of 5, there are other numbers that will bear out the large amount of children and families that have moved into the area. And there's a mouse, sorry. Oh, hey, what's that? Oh no, my PowerPoint skills are poor. Give me 1 second. Okay, well, the backup is supposed to, the background graphic is supposed to go away. But those, so the major gains are in that 10 to 14, 30 to 34, 70 to 74, losses in 35 to 39, and gains 6. You can see that really it's more so of a progression. The 60 to 64, it's certainly not an anomaly, but it's not exactly notable.
What was the quantity of homes in all of that changed during that time frame?
We will be getting to homes. This is
Okay.
population up.
Yeah, I was just asking like the relationship between the amount of housing versus the growth. What was that growth relationship? That's all. Okay, if you get to it, I'll wait till then.
Okay, I can make a note of that too. And so the top age cohorts here, as opposed to 2010, where you see again the 10 to 14 age group and 45 to 49 age group are the largest cohorts, with 30 to 34 not far behind at all. And that is basically, you know, the parents and kids. In 2010, the numbers were much more strong from that 30 to 49 area. And that would be your basic professionals, or we would presume. This shows the comparison and the median age. The median age did not, you know, it did decline, but it wasn't a significant decline. Where we saw a really interesting dichotomy was between the males and females. The females trended much older for a median age of 42, and males at 35. What we believe is, sorry, little animations in here. Is that the reason why the male population is comparatively younger is there are a high number of males under 5. And then for the females, there are a large percentage of 85 and over.
What's a cohort?
A cohort, it's another way, it's like a subsection or a grouping of similar
Okay.
traits. Thank you.
Thanks.
The cohort.
I wasn't sure if it meant in the same household or.
Oh, no. It's just a general term.
Okay.
This shows, this breaks, so we're into race, the race demographics now, where we're breaking down the total populations by those major.
That's interesting.
Yeah, those major attributes of one race or two or more. And this shows over 30 years, the growth of the major subgroups, or I guess major cohorts. The population shift, what was interesting here, and my animation should come in, that in the Hispanic or Latino of any race, it did decline. The distribution within the cohort changed from being predominantly Mexican to other, which, you know, is not necessarily something I failed to mention in the initial slides, was that this data is taken from the 2020 census, as well as the 2025 year ACS, or American Community Survey estimates. The American Community Survey is an annual survey, obviously, but it is it is a much smaller sampling than the US Census. It is also not, it does not include the year 2020. It is only 2015 to 2000, or sorry, 2014 to 2019, 2015. Sorry, my head's starting to break, but it's not the exact same is basically what I'm saying.
And then one other question for clarification purposes, percent of total population versus percent of Hispanic population. Can you clarify what we're talking about there?
So the percent of the total population would be that that total population number that we had on the previous slides.
Of our city.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have the total population, and then you have your subgroupings, and then you have the total number of Hispanic population. And so this is
Where?
this
Total
kind of-
percentage of Hispanic population, where?
in Olivet.
Got it. So 13% of the population in Olivet, of the Hispanic population in Olivet is 13%.
No, the Hispanic population in 2020 for this year is 2.4%.
The columns on the right add up to 100. That's the share between the two groups. Is that right,
Yeah,
Dawn?
so Mexican is a share of Hispanic as well as other.
Right.
And then you have the Asian breakdown of the Asian cohorts down into, you know, Asian, Indian, Chinese, Filipino, Japanese.
Got it. I get it now. Okay. All right.
So it's to show you what the true number of, like, compared to the total population. So it's supposed to give you an insight into the comparative group or percentage of the total population, and then how much of the actual or their cohorts population it is. So to have in 2010 for 93% to say they are the Hispanic population and they are Mexican, and then in 2020 it almost completely shifts from Mexican to other. What does that mean? Does it mean anything? It might not mean anything at all. And then you look at Asian, that was where our principal gains were. So, and this breaks it down into those subgroups of Asian, and you see that our highest subgroup is Chinese. There was a large increase, 8.6% increase, and of the Asian population to nearly, or they're 20% of our total population. So that's very significant. And then there goes my other showing the shift of Chinese. And then this is where we lost, within those subgroupings, where we lost the Chinese population in percentage wise. Language, and we will get to household characteristics and housing units in the next few slides. One thing that we definitely wanted to look at was language. This is a slide that needs to be improved because there's a lot, it goes a lot deeper and it's a lot of numbers on one page. It was the most significant thing or most significant takeaway from this is the 25 or nearly 25% of the population aged 5+ speaks a language other than English. And so that is something that, we need to wrap our head around as far as our marketing materials and, do we need to have translations with these things? How can we best communicate with that population for the comprehensive plan? And to what extent can we define where, how to get that message out?
Just with that, the very top line, the very right side there,
Mhm.
percent speak English less than very well, only 8%.
Yes.
That's just 5-year-olds. Oh, 5-year-olds and over. Okay, got it.
And over, right.
Five and over. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
John, do we have the data on this that shows what this was in 2010?
Yes, we do. And that is for whenever this slide gets broken down, the 2010 information will be added.
Yeah, okay.
So it's predominantly Asian and Pacific Island language for that's the predominant language other than English. Then I also looked at nativity. The our foreign-born citizens have been here for a long time. Most of them are, roughly 3/4 of them came before 2010. I would say the other thing that stands out is it's pretty high percentage of our overall population that is foreign born, which, you could say, well, obviously we have a very high percentage of our population that, is not whatever. But this is an indication of where they are, or I guess how well they have naturalized. And there are very few people that have become naturalized citizens. And so we got to see if that, is something we need to push for. Is that, or is there something that we can help our citizens out with? And if reaching out with other languages is some way to reach the foreign-born population, that may be really the key to communicating. All right.
Is council doing anything to address that disparity between St. Louis County, not a citizen, versus Olivet, not a citizen, and that 10 point, almost 25% gap? Like, why are we underperforming? Underperforming is maybe the wrong word, but why are our citizens not becoming U.S. citizens at such a lower rate than St. Louis County?
I wouldn't consider St. Louis County to be the average. The national average is technically what we can measure ourselves against. As far as St. Louis County having being higher than the national average, you would consider that national to be the baseline. So we are slightly below average. We're about 4% below average, if you consider that. I wouldn't consider that massively lower. But we can see if it's something that, it may be something that we need to look at.
And also, about 37% of the year of entry is in the last 10 years, or 38% really.
Yeah.
So that could have something to do with it too.
Right.
What I think it kind of says is we're kind of more welcoming maybe than the rest of the county. I mean, that's a little bit of a stretch, but or of a
Nice.
spot for people who are immigrating.
I think one of the things that when you're looking at this data, kind of right now too, particularly as we're looking at it kind of in silos, right? We're looking at, race and we're looking at these things. And I think the next step is to start to look at those things, kind of mixed and combined and how do they overlay. But there's also a lot more information because, or a lot more thoughts we have to kind of think about is becoming a naturalized citizen, does it matter? What does it do? Does it, the other thing is you have to look at over the course of the last many years to become a citizen is a lot longer process. And so, and if you have, it could be that you have particular folks from different maybe countries that are here, maybe again with the language barrier, they're going to have to do the language to become the naturalized citizen because you have to take the test, etc. And so, and not everyone can become a naturalized citizen. And so before that becomes the goal, we have to ask ourselves, why is it not happening? And is it even possible because of the constraints brought on by federal government?
Good. Yeah, this is not a full analysis. We're presenting the basic data. I had some space restrictions also, just trying to fit it all into a slide presentation was difficult, but so there is a lot of room for improvement. And we'd love to have, the notes on what you would like to see. So keep them coming.
But the questions are informing, because the questions are saying, what do you find interesting in this?
Right.
And then that directs staff to, okay, well, let's look at that, so, okay, that's one of the particular interest. Let's look at what was it 10 years ago.
Yeah, and incorporating more of the 2010 as opposed to just focusing on the regional comparisons is a big part of it. So here is one where I did get some of the 2010 information in, although the analysis is still a little bit light.
Dawn, are you sharing that? Because I can't see that.
What can't you see?
I can't see this. What you have up on the screen, I can't see.
Okay.
I don't know why. I'm not good at this. I don't know what I did.
I can see it on my end.
So what do I need to click on?
Maybe go to the top where it says view options.
Not an option. Switch to screen share. Oh, there we go. Got it. Sorry.
No
Carry
problem.
on.
We have a high percentage of the population that is enrolled in school, K through 12. And within that cohort, the majority of those are in grades 1 through 8. It's a significant increase that it has skewed the population numbers. But any thoughts on those? That's
exactly why we're increasing the size of the elementary school.
Right?
Yeah, the elementary school went down. The high school went up. Go back.
Well, and also know that these numbers are, they're estimates from 2015 to 2019. They're not exact and timely. They don't reflect any political or things that were going on in 2020. They're pre-pandemic. There's a lot that's not considered in these numbers. And in a way, as you look at the educational attainment and we look at the more of those financial characteristics, definitely keep in mind that these are pre-pandemic. No one ever had imagined at the time that could ever happen. So we are very well educated with about, very high percentage of our school age population. So I should say 25 and higher have a high school degree and a high bachelor's and master's. Oops, and I feel like a slide that in for employment. We have a relatively low unemployment rate. This does not take into consideration any of the recent employment, shortages or anything from the pandemic. We have a pretty large labor force. So, and participation rate. And the unemployment rate is not very clear on this, but our unemployment rate currently is 3.7. The unemployment rate that is closest is that for that 5.5 for Olivet is in 2010. The significant thing to note on this slide is that the vast majority of parents with children, both of the parents in the household work. And so that puts in mind what services we might need to extend as a city and what we might need to focus on in an economic development sense from business or business attraction sense. We are in the center of it all. There you go. We have a very comparatively short commute time. However, most of our labor force drives alone. Now, in a way, you could say that that very low average commute time may be the reason why people drive alone. They can get to their job without having any stops in between. And pre-pandemic, 17% working from home, that's a pretty big number. What we would like to think about with these numbers going forward is, do we want to,
Oh, sweet.
do we want to change that driving alone and focus on, carpooling, the walking, public transportation, or are we fine with, is more traffic? Does that mean more people shopping at the retail? It's kind of a, but then walking, that's shopping too. Or at least that's what I'm doing usually whenever I walk. And here, industry in this sense does not account for the industry within Olivet. We've gone into employment. So these are the characteristics of our population. These are the industries in which our labor force work. The reason why it's significant is because, we can see that we have a high number of, or a high percentage of our population that are in healthcare, education, social assistance, professional, scientific, management. That doesn't surprise anybody. Manufacturing is a little surprising, but again, that's our population. Doesn't refer to the number of manufacturers that are literally located here. And then with occupations, same thing. Most of the majority of our population, our labor force population, that is, works in management, business, science, arts. And then right after that is sales and office, which is a little surprising, but I guess there's some really great salespeople in Olivet. Wow. Financial characteristics. Here we go with the households. All right. So this is again, 2020 ACS 5-year estimates, 3,114 total households, which is very, very similar to the number of parcels that we have. Only off by about 90 or so.
Yeah, I think, John, that was my question. So did we have the same number of households in
No, we
2000?
would not, and it would not make sense for it to, even if you consider the number of single-family residential parcels, that would not account for the households that are in the multifamily, residential, attached, single-family, and if you adding that up, you would probably get very close. But they are not actually, compatible numbers. They aren't one and the same. Does that answer your question?
I'm trying to determine, our population grew 10%. Did we grow our housing stock by 10%? I think that's the only question I'm trying to figure out. Or did we add this? Do we have the same number of houses?
So the household
bigger.
The households is actually, or a household is a unit of population. So you have like a married couple family household, then you have non-family households. They break it out.
So when you see total,
uh,
so if it's not household count, then it's average household size. One of those things has to, like, it's X times Y equals the 10% population growth. I'm just trying to understand what is changing to drive that population growth. Does my question make sense? It's like, do we have more houses?
Yeah,
with the same number
sorry,
of people
Nathan
per
was
house?
talking without his mic
So
on.
your question is, do we have the same number of houses, but more people living in those houses?
Correct.
Or have more houses?
That's it. And the same number of people per house. That's it. Or are both going up? I don't really know.
And we can look at that. So with households, you know, not the majority, but 40% have people with 18 and over, and you know, almost 36% have a person, one or more person with that are 60 and over. I think it's really interesting, you know, that there are more seniors that are cohabitating and in non-family households. That could be driving that number. There's definitely a lot to look at.
So just to make a point, I am one of those seniors who are close to being who's going to live in a non-family, multi-person household. So there you go.
Big fan of the situation myself.
Right.
Then we break down the household income. So you have, there's not a lot of significant, you know, comparison wise, we do trend in our median household income and our average household income above the county and state averages, as well above the US averages. The highlight of this slide, however, is non-traditional incomes, sorry, of retirement and Social Security that affect the way people spend their money differently than earnings would. Does that make sense? I feel like I said that sentence backwards. So a person that relies on earnings primarily as their income spends their money differently than someone whose primary income comes from a static means like Social Security, retirement income, stocks, investment. Even if that number fluctuates or that income fluctuates, it still affects their the way they spend their money, as it were, different than earning.
Don, before you move. So on this, going back to Nate's and David's question, you can see on that top line of that chart, the number of households. And that there was a decline of the number of households from 2020 to 2010. Yet there was an increase in population. And you saw in the previous population charts, that increase was really under that.
True. And yeah, it
So
was
it's more
mainly
family.
in that family population. You're right. With those gains, if we go all the way back to like slide one, where we have, oh my, I am so sorry. Those animations are.
So while she's finding that, if I build an apartment with 250 units and I have a single person living in each one, I'm adding 250 households and 250 people? Okay.
Well, if there's one person in each one, yeah, so.
It should correlate.
Yeah, it would correlate as long as there's only one person in every single one. But there's no guarantee to that. And there are maximum occupancies, and you could factor, within a margin of error, but it's a little bit of a math problem.
It could be that at the time that the census is taken, let's say there's 100-unit apartment complex, 10 are vacant. So there would be 90 units. Yeah, there'd be 100 units, but there'd be 90 household things. I don't know. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
trying to think.
But yeah, pros. But and here's where that age breakdown is, right? Where we have those climb, all those climbs here in the very younger age groups. Even though I only have, this one circled, there's still more upward trends in the younger age groups. I'm going back to. Sorry, guys, I thought I could bypass it. It's a family income. Families are different than households. I do have a prepared subject table subject table definitions that I'll have to refer you to instead of me handle it. The per capita income, similar to our median family and average family. I guess it is higher for it is higher than the national average. The highlight on this, there's two highlights on this slide, which are the difference between the female and male median earnings for full-time year-round workers. Females earn about 14% less. I'm so sorry, can't see around these things. The family for family. What was that, Becky?
Surprised that the women are making more than the average men.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Right. Yeah. No, the sarcasm is dripping. So we do have a large number of families that make upwards of 200,000 a year. That, you know, brings up that per capita, that those averages. I would still like to see the females making more at the city. Of course, we are all.
Are these income, are they gross?
Duly noted, Dawn, duly noted.
Are they gross net of taxes
I believe.
before taxes?
I would guess it's before tax.
I would also guess it's before tax.
Don't have any of my notes in front of me or my table definition. Yeah, nobody else has been allowed to ask me questions during the presentation. Oh, okay. For our housing unit breakdown, differences between, you know, what type, this is where I've gone into, you know, the actual types of housing units that we have. What are the differences? We have a high percentage of, you know, 4-bedroom, 2-bedroom households, mostly the 3-bedroom. The number of total rooms and the renter, we are primarily owner occupied, and we are relatively on trend. If you can see that renter occupied to owner occupied percentage. For the housing cost, this is another slide that's going to be broken down and dissected so that it can be much more readable. But the highlight here is the amount that people are spending as a percentage of their housing costs to their not their earnings, but their income. And the higher percentage or the more people that are paying or for rent or for their mortgage of 30% or more is really the problem. We want more people in that we want people in that comfortable range where it's less than 29%, I guess. So you know, who is having that problem? Surprise, surprise, the folks that make more do not have as high housing costs as a percentage of and the lower incomes have, you know, they spend much more on their housing costs. Another sarcastic comment because I'm rather flat. Barb's too. Oh, I'm sorry. And then I have the.
I think it's best since it's recorded that I keep mine to a minimum.
Okay. Thank you. Be one of those 7 people that didn't have to pay rent, because those are cool people. Don't know what they did. Oh, I'm sorry. This is what I was referring to as that percentage of housing cost as income. Oh, I'm fine. But if you look at families, this slide goes into what comprises those families and those income brackets, and how much that percentage of housing costs to their income as it goes up. I could look at this slide forever. I'm really looking forward to breaking it down, and I'm glad to have the opportunity because it is so much good information. The less you make, it seems the more your the higher percentage of your income goes to housing costs. That's it. So if anybody likes to look at these statistics in a one-on-one fashion, data.census.gov is a much friendlier place than it ever used to be. It is, you know, as a seasoned professional, I thought it was very fun. Except the fact that they did not let me combine my years. So that was like the only thing where I had to do some manual calculations to make sure that the 2010 matched the 2020, because the 2020 and the ACS, it does not entirely match. That was something that I kept running into over and over again as I was doing the yearly comparisons. But I digress. If anybody wants me to, you know, talk them through it, I will also have the breakouts, all of the regional comparisons, and all of the data pulled for both census, both ACS. Right now, you can ask us.
Questions, comments, concerns? I have one.
Yes, sir.
I'm thinking that you've done a good job of pulling out some interesting points of data and looking at the entire thing. And I think like a little summary of some of those things may be helpful
Yes.
to us and to council. And that way we can go to you and do the deep dive we need to with regards to the backup information. But I think that you know, some of the things are really quite eye-opening here.
It's going to be great. This is kind of a, I guess, we wanted you to see the information before we presented it to the consultants that we're working with on diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's a comprehensive plan. Your questions help us define what information we further, you know, dive into. When I ran into space issues, I started cutting things, and it was just a lot to condense and summarize. So there's so much to add. Although, you know, I don't know how many opportunities I'll get to
I guess one of the things, whenever I look at data like this, I usually look at what you've done is the trends, the change in from one to another, because and the question is that trend continuing? Is it stopped? Is it in one direction or another direction? And those are some of the things we probably need to look at in time to say, well, possibly, you know, things that we should look at in terms of where we need to go.
And there's also some economic modeling for forecasting, you know, that we can look at. It's looking backwards, even, you know, the two further than 2010, I think would be advisable. You know, it doesn't have to be all distilled down to a presentation, but it does. So it's really developing our what information we have and developing those points, developing that summary. That's what we're working on.
And it's a resource for us when we do have a question, we know where to go.
I would like to put, more of this on the website as we refine it. It's not refined, or I would not say it's fully refined at this moment. Your questions have been great. And I feel like there's a long way to go. But at the same time, I'm very pleased with what we've gathered thus far. So putting together those summaries and things like that, I think would be, part of a great next step. There are dashboards in ArcGIS. There are all different kinds of ways that we can start expressing ourselves and keeping our public up to date on what is going on in our community. But we also have to talk internally about what relevant information can we put out there. We need to pick cherry pick our highlights. There are a lot of good information to put out there. There are small bars, and when I say bar, I mean a line on a website. But there's a lot that we can do, and what we want to do will be really from your guys' feedback that we start gauging that.
It's good. Any other discussion?
I mean, I guess what would be interesting to me is the fact that how many units are we adding for the next 5 years coming online for the redevelopment?
You're looking probably at over 450, almost 500 units.
So we're going from maybe an 80-20 split with houses to rental or apartment units, maybe closer to 70-30. I'm just making these numbers up, but it's gonna be a dramatic shift, right? And so is there a way to take this information, instead of stopping at 2020 making decisions, actually look to 2030 and figure out what all of that looks like in 2030? What's different about it? What problems do we need to solve then versus figuring out I'm probably gonna solve now. But I would say use this data to look forward. What do we look like in 2030?
And then I think that's what the intent of the council ultimately, or what we would see the city manager bringing back to the council to have those discussions and taking a look at that. And that would be part of also we're updating our comprehensive plan to take that into consideration and that impact. And you saw in that chart, that percentage of the number of renters increasing by a couple of percentage points from 2010 to 2020. But you're also seeing that that rent rate also increasing. And so is housing increasing? Is that telling us something about a national level about the cost of owning a home, or the choice of demographics of owning a home, or is when you're in a built out community in a high demand, multifamily is going to be one of the only options to provide additional housing opportunities. There are good discussion of what are the benefits and what are the things the city would have to deal with that. Good point, and I think that is the road that the council, or the city manager is taking the council on as we collect that data.
Then do we collect demographic information on the business licenses as well, or is that just?
Yes, because through your component of the 5-year plan, and that set us in that in that direction, so we can see how those things are changing in that process. Collected good data. We also have a new software system that has improved the storage of the data, and Don's handling that pretty good. So she provided those update demographics, the business demographics at the last meeting, and then we're going to start looking at comparing them to those. It's interesting because we're seeing these different shifts that are occurring.
It's kind of like between the demographic information and the business information is use of property. It's like have absentee landlords up or down. Also a new trend that wasn't around in 2010, which is short-term rentals. Airbnb, so interesting to, I don't know.
Do we allow those in all of that, Airbnbs?
There are Airbnbs in all of that.
That's not what I asked you.
There's nothing in the code that would prohibit them so long as they follow the occupancy procedure.
In Webster, just as an FY, just as an aside, and wondering if this is applicable here. Sorry, you guys, I have the thing off because there's too much chaos in this room. The Airbnbs would require a separate occupancy permit every single time they wanted to rent the place out. We don't do that, do we?
That's the way they have, that's the way the code would read every time there's a change in occupant. Unless the
That's-
owner resides in that premises. They
So
are,
that's our code, yes?
pardon?
That's our code as well?
That is correct.
Huh, interesting. Do we care?
All right, any other discussion?
Well, that was a legit question. Do we care that that might be not be being followed legally in our community?
It's been brought up to our council and that is something that they're taking a look into. The commission, the planning commission has had discussions on that. There are concerns about, how best to regulate those. But in, this type of, it's a trend brought by the, changes in how, I don't know how it's like the Uber system and taxis. Airbnbs is something that is so quickly changing given the use of the internet and how things have been made easier to operate or run a business. For us, we look at it as the public safety issues.
Right, right. I get that. That's why I'm asking the question, do we care? And how do we want to discuss that, so to speak?
And I think that's something that other commissions are taking a look into.
Okay, not our problem. I'm looking at it from a business, I mean, Airbnbs are business. Some people, that's their business. So do we want to make it easier or harder for them to do their business?
And you kind of go to first principles on that and say, well, what is occupancy? What is the meaning? What is the doing occupancy inspections or currently, I believe that you have if you're absentee landlord, you have to do a yearly inspection where you have tenants in the house.
Mhm.
In a single family house. I don't know if that's going to carry over to the rental units in a rental building. Just being built now, we've got one that's finished and we're working on two others. But
Right.
does that change occupancy?
Yes.
Just because of the type of building it is?
Well,
there's a lot of questions.
Yeah, it's a whole
Yeah,
different.
We're not
discussion to prepare for.
trying to,
But
come up with an answer right now.
that
but
is
there's a lot of-
one thing. I mean, so of the 500 apartment units that I have in line right now, from Bonham Village, Eden Rock, to Oliver and all that, anytime that there's a change in tenant, there's a trigger in an occupancy. And we have
Right.
one facility that they do provide short-term rentals on those, mainly like executive and things described in that nature. Where yes, we may be there the following month doing the same inspection and identifying looking at the same things without any change in there, but that's the way the code is written. That's part of the process for it right now. As we look.
Excuse my ignorance, but do they have to pay for an occupancy permit every single time?
Yes,
The owner? Okay, I thought so. Just clarify. Okay,
as we expand into the lodging industry and get a hotel at the Olive Crossing development, That is a different type of operation and there, but it's something that we'll have to take a look at our wording to make sure that things are set.
So that's a good point, Carlos. Then is Airbnb in the same classification as a hotel?
My answer would be no, because typically the Airbnb operates in a single family or a residential setting, where a hotel will operate in a commercial kind of setting.
Actually,
And
with
that
all,
makes
with
that
with all due
big
respect, I think that's your opinion.
Yeah.
Versus something that is codified in an ordinance or code.
Mhm.
And that's, I think that's what you're getting at, is that it really needs to be looked at. I think a lot of the municipalities, the 88 or so, various municipalities have looked at the Airbnb situation, outlawed them or augmented them or allowed them to various degrees. And we just haven't done that yet.
Hey,
Anyway,
folks,
those are my questions. From a business perspective, an Airbnb is a money raiser for the owner of the property. Even if it's a way to offset their own mortgage, you know.
Yeah, but at least the city is getting a piece of that money, then it's not a business for the city.
Right. No, I agree. I totally agree. I'm not saying that I have a position on it one way or the other. I'm just wondering. I guess I'm defending myself as to why I even brought it up.
A business like city warrant.
I would suspect that, you know, there could be some sort of something in between business license. Hospitality license. A short-term rental license or something like that, something that could be looked at. But as you say, there are other commissions looking at this idea, or at least tabling them for now, because it's something that's been around for a number of years.
Mhm.
Yeah.
hey, folks, it's David here. Sorry, I was going to stay for the first half an hour. I stayed for the first hour, but it's my son's birthday, so I now have to jump off. Dawn, I thought the data was spectacular. I love looking at the trends, 2010 to 2020. I will be very interested to see how council digests that and what we change as a community based on this information. Other than that, I'm going to hop off. Do I need to do anything else? Or are we good?
No, we're good.
Oh,
Thank
happy birthday to your son.
Yeah. Oh, he's eating ice cream cake. He'll be fine. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, moving on. 5-year economic plan. Is there anything there?
Nope,
Carlos?
that was part of Don's
Part of Don's
presentation.
presentation, yeah. And basically, we're moving on to other business. Got some meeting minutes.
You have a set of June 27th, 2022 meeting minutes. Becky, I sent you a Word copy. I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at it.
Of what? I'm sorry.
For the meeting
I got
minutes,
distracted. Oh yeah, no, I looked at them.
Chairman, do you have enough to?
I have no changes.
You have some changes?
Second or no change.
Okay. All right. Is that a vote?
No, you're just accepting them.
We'll just go ahead and accept these.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right, fantastic. Okay, moving on. Reports, city staff reports.
Chairman, at this point, let's see, in details of what this group would probably be have more interest in. We issued a final occupancy, we conducted a final occupancy inspection for the Plant Haven Retail Center at the Plant Haven facility. They're still working on a name for the commercial complex. And I don't think she plans to open until after Thanksgiving. And they're still working on some of the exterior site related issues. Next door will be the UPS store. They have applied for their building permit. And they're working on the interior tenant finishes before the UPS component, the UPS store takes over. Their finish, their tenant finishes. So
Oh, in that same building.
yeah, I'll be right next door to Plant Haven.
There are 6 spaces in the building total.
Easy Storage has applied for their building permit and it's under our review at this moment.
I mean, it's-
So we hope to get that out within the next couple of weeks. Let's see, what's the other one? A building permit has been issued for the tenant finishes for the old Starbucks, which is going to be the Revel coffee shop in there. And I know they're working on those tenant finishes. I haven't followed up within the past couple of weeks, so I'm not sure.
Do we have an ETA when it's gonna open? Somebody actually asked me the other day.
No, I don't.
Okay,
You did find out that they are a fairly small coffee company that has locations in Kansas City and St. Louis. That's it.
what's the name of it again?
Oh, Revo Coffee, I think. that's-
Revo. Okay,
Yep, they have locations only in Kansas City and St. Louis. This will be their second location in St. Louis. And they have, I think, 4 or 5 in Kansas City. Kind of cool.
that is cool. That is really cool.
Then outside of that, our neighbor has a big grand opening tomorrow.
Who's that? Who are you talking about?
Costco.
Oh, yeah, right? Kind of sad to miss that, all those yummy treats the first day.
I'm gonna be staying away for next, next,
Month.
see that they've really been pushing the memberships along Olive.
And Page.
And Page, yes. Mhm.
Well, I'm joining.
And it's my understanding that the gas station component's open already,
Oh, good.
or I saw that in the journal.
What components open already?
The gas station's already open then.
Oh, well, maybe they'll be able to compete with that Kirkwood Sam's where gas has been crazy cheap.
You'll see some spot reporting tomorrow on helicopter flight.
On other items, I believe all the all the parks are now open. And a majority of amenities and facilities have been completed or nearing completion. Stacy Park was able to host the Harvest Fest, yes.
Sea Park is beautiful. It looks terrific.
That's-
Now, did we do that work or did the city do that? I mean, the city of St. Louis do that work for Stacy.
it's the improvements were being done by the city of Olivet. Is that?
Got it.
You mean who is actually the construction? Not us, most of it.
Like-
Some of,
Like, did we pay for it or did the city of St. Louis pay for it?
we
No,
paid.
those are part of the
We
bond.
paid for it. Oh, got it. Well, it looks terrific. The only question I have, and I only know that, I'm only asking this because I obviously wasn't here when all the work was being discussed and debated and whatever. Is there a continuous path or no?
Yeah, I believe H Park will have a continuous path as part of their improvements. So Stacy does have one.
I just couldn't make it out when I was driving by there the other day.
And then I don't know if there's anything, community center is March is the anticipated. April of 2023.
When did they have the electronic reception? Is that?
That was
Yeah,
on a
that
Thursday.
was very well attended. Yeah. It was
I
this-
think they're always popular, especially this one. You didn't get charged for any video, like a flat screen or anything. We got a grant from the state or somebody such that was free for a change.
They, I think maybe they were overwhelmed from their logistics planning with regards to getting people through.
We just really don't have it. We struggle with a good place to have it. We've tried it here, but it actually backs up onto Olive. We couldn't do it at Orson because of all the construction. Maybe next year at Orson, but again, it'll probably back up onto Orson. It's really hard to find a place because it's really well attended.
Well, I think what happened was that, talking with the police officer there, when they got there to set up, there were already people in line. So
Yeah.
when they did it
Mhm.
on their own, they didn't line up in the way they had it envisioned, so it
Yeah.
created a little bit of a bottleneck.
Yeah, and we couldn't close the park off because the school people park there. Because we had talked about that, about just closing it and then letting it get set up, knowing that there'd be people that would just, it'll, everything. Eventually, you have to get rid of all the stuff, right?
Well, now that there's Costco, everybody's gonna have more stuff
So-
and they're gonna have to get rid of it. So, yeah.
Do you know tentatively when we have the old set?
Everything kind of hinges on the new maintenance building getting done.
Okay.
And the new maintenance building should be finished in a couple weeks. And then next week, the park staff or the recreation staff will be moving here. Once the park people can actually move into the maintenance building, which we're also going to be using for storage of things from the old community center, they'll start the abatement process. We're thinking maybe mid-November or December. That typically takes 1 to 2 months, mainly because of the clearing of the permits afterwards. You have to wait until you get the all clear and it gets approved by the county. So we're looking at January or February for the building coming down.
With regards to other developments, the Opus development in behind the CVS, I noticed that all the houses have been raised and the area is fenced off. Is there any hold up there?
Right now, I think they're kind of, they were reassessing their pro forma on that with the current changes in materials and things. We've reached out to them to see what type of schedule they'll have. I don't know.
I didn't hear back from them today, but if they're having, when they started, they went off very quickly to take things down. They started working more closely on the performance, and then they started having, weren't able to get costs for things, for certain things like windows, things they couldn't get because they couldn't get even when it would be in, and then the costs, and that we're having that trouble too, where we're getting a cost on something with the community center, but then it may change by the time they say that it can come. And so they have been following closely the good works at the Oliver, and how quickly they've ramped up on their occupancies and the rents that are being held. So they were going back and reworking their pro forma on that. And I anticipate we'll hear back from them again once we're reaching out to them about the fence and different things, but I assume we'll hear back from them once they're working with an equity partner who also is looking at the opportunity zone. And so that kind of changes how that investor looks at the pro forma. It's a little, I'm not sure, it's not as clear because the opportunity zone has other timelines and deadlines that impact it that I'm not as clear on what drives that.
There's a couple other things. The Oliver and the outbuilding, nothing happening there, I take it.
At this point, we don't have anything with the outbuilding. We've been had a conversation with Mike Sansone on that because that is still their work. And really, I think they're kind of waiting to see what happens across the street a little bit too, to see what they get in. I think that's going to kind of focus them. I think everybody's moving pretty slowly right now.
Sure. No, and that's fair.
Yeah.
And that's fair. It's just that some of the things like take, for example, the storage facility,
Mhm.
that's taken an awful long time. And they've come back and they've
Mhm.
looked at their pro formas or whatever a number of times. But it's just that we do give incentives for a lot of these
Mhm.
things. And I'm thinking that having, including a time-based incentive in the future for some of these things may be worthwhile.
Mhm.
To say, we need some definite dates to get started at least. Because we have a lot of these things just sort of languishing and with good reason right now because of supply chains.
Yeah.
And that's something, but I think that some of the things are just sort of languishing a little bit.
And there are some, I know, like in the crossing, there are specific dates that need to be met. as part of the process. The thing with Opus was from my department said it was not to have the vacant properties out there. Those houses needed to come down quickly. And we probably pushed that process faster than in there, but I think it was important for that neighborhood not to have, vacant houses that are looking in there. And I think that was one of our primary goals, to make sure that that was cleared out first.
Sure, it makes sense. Yeah. I also noticed that the demise of the grow facility, the warehouse there, they've tried to spruce it up. They painted the outside, still for sale. Has there been any movement on that at all, or?
Not that we're aware of,
No.
or any change of hands.
Becky, I don't know if you're talking to us, but you're muted.
I should not do that, sorry. Is there any conversation with the owners that they want to tear it down at all? Is that not even a thing? I mean, I don't want them to, I was just wondering.
No, I don't think that's been entertained and we can always bring it up to them on there. And the discussions we've had, that hasn't been an option that's been pulled out.
All right, on that note, ladies and germs, I'm gonna go. Thank you. It's been lovely. Dawn, you did a great job on that presentation.
Thank you very much. No notes, no.
You did great. See you guys soon.
All right, take care, thanks.
Thanks again. And with that, I complete my
Yes.
quorum, so.
Oh, fantastic, yeah, I guess, yeah. So,
Chairperson, do you have any? Mr. Pearl?
just Mr. Carl, do you have any report? from-
I would just, happenings around the city, because I think staff pretty well took care of, the other things. Of course, if you did miss the Harvest Festival, it was very good. Staff did an excellent job, especially in the new park. It looked great. So it's your loss if you didn't make it. We have a drug take back day on the 29th, Saturday from 10 to 2. We have fall leaf collection starting the first week in November for the first pass. If you're interested in running for city council, packets will be available November 22nd. There is a water replacement going on, main replacement going on Ingle. Don't forget the turkey trot. If you're going to be in town this year, we'd love to see you there. We have our regular meeting, the city council tomorrow, and coffee with the mayor on November 9th, and that I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Carl. Is there any other business that anyone would like to put forth from the committee? With that, I think we are done.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Greg.